Emily Carter had always lived a quiet life in Seattle. She worked at a local bookstore, kept a tidy apartment, enjoyed small routines that gave her comfort: morning coffee, evening walks, and long phone calls with customers who became friends. To most people, she seemed peaceful, organized, and steady. But inside, she carried a soft sadness she never talked about. That sadness came from the distance between her and her son, Ethan. Ethan had left home at 18 for college and then stayed away as work opportunities appeared. Now, he was 23, working long hours in a tech company and always busy. Their conversations had become short and polite, quick updates, simple questions, nothing deep. Emily missed the days when he came home excited to share everything from school news to silly stories. She missed the bond they once had, but she didn't want to push him. She believed children needed space to grow, even when parents felt lonely. That rainy evening, she had just finished folding laundry when she heard a knock on her front door. It wasn't loud, but it carried a strange urgency. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, she just stood there, confused. When she opened the door, she saw Ethan standing there with damp hair, tired eyes, and a look she couldn't read. "Ethan," she said, surprised. She rarely saw him without planning ahead. So his sudden visit unsettled her in a way she couldn't explain. "Hi, Mom," he said softly. His voice held a heaviness she hadn't heard in years. Not since his teenage days, when storms brewed in his life and he didn't know how to handle them. Emily stepped aside quickly. "Come in, you're soaked." He walked in slowly, his steps heavy, as if something weighed on him. Emily watched him quietly, noticing small things, how his hands trembled slightly, how he didn't smile the way he usually did, how he stood in the middle of her living room as if unsure whether to sit or speak. "What's wrong?" she asked gently, but he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the familiar room, the couch he grew up napping on, the bookshelf filled with stories she once read to him, the small family photos on the wall. It was as if he needed the comfort of the past before he could say what he came to say. "Mom, I need to talk," he finally said, his voice low and uneven. "And I need you to really listen." Those words made Emily's heartbeat quicken. There was something different in him, something serious. She felt a knot form in her stomach. Parents know when something is coming: good news, bad news, or something life-changing. And tonight she felt that sense sharply. "Of course," she whispered, sitting down and motioning for him to join her. But Ethan didn't sit. He paced the carpet slowly, his eyebrows tight, his jaw tense. "I should have told you earlier," he said. "But I didn't know how. I didn't want to worry you." Emily felt her breath catch. She wanted to rush to him, to ask 100 questions at once, but she stayed still. She didn't want to interrupt whatever he was trying to gather the courage to say. Ethan took a deep breath. "There's something big happening. Something I can't handle alone. And I didn't know who else to come to." Those words hit Emily hard, not in a painful way, but in a way that reminded her of how much she still mattered to him. Even after the distance, even after years of short calls and busy schedules. He still came to her when life felt too heavy. She didn't show it on her face, but her heart softened. A small warmth spread inside her chest. For a moment, she saw the little boy he used to be, the one who ran into her arms when he was scared, the one who trusted her completely. But she also sensed fear behind his eyes, something deeper than stress or confusion. This wasn't a casual visit. This wasn't a simple request. Something serious was coming, and the air in the room felt still. Almost waiting, Emily folded her hands tightly to keep them from shaking. She wanted to be strong for him, but inside she was nervous. 1,000 thoughts rushed through her mind, but she pushed them away. The only thing that mattered was him standing there in front of her, asking for her attention in a way he hadn't done in years. "Tell me," she said softly. "I'm here." Ethan stopped pacing. He looked at her with eyes full of something emotional, something unfinished, something heavy. And in that moment, Emily knew life was about to change. Ethan stood in the living room. Rain dripping from his jacket, the soft glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Emily waited quietly, her hands folded in her lap, watching him pace. She could feel his hesitation, the tension in his shoulders, the weight of something he had been holding back for weeks. Every mother knows the difference between a casual visit and one where her child carries a storm inside them. Tonight, she was certain this was the latter. "Mom, I want to ask you something," he said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. "Something big." Emily blinked. Her heart skipped a beat, and she tried to prepare herself for the unknown. She had imagined 100 possibilities. He needed advice. He had made a mistake. Or maybe he wanted help with something at work, but the seriousness in his eyes suggested none of those simple answers would fit. "What is it, Ethan?" she asked softly, her voice calm but steady. She wanted him to know he could trust her, that he could speak openly. Ethan swallowed and glanced at the floor. The sound of the rain outside filled the silence, punctuating the moment. After a long pause, he lifted his eyes to hers. I want you to walk me down the aisle at my wedding." Emily froze. Her mind raced. For a few seconds, all she could do was stare. She had imagined his future countless times, the job he would take, the places he might live, the woman he might marry, but never this. She hadn't even thought about the day he would get married in a serious way. And now here he was, standing before her with a request that was both surprising and profoundly touching. "Ethan, why me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You have your father, your uncles, your friends. Why me?" He took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "Because it's always been you, Mom. You were the one who raised me. You were there for me when no one else was. You taught me right from wrong, made me feel safe, and helped me become who I am. When I think about that day, when I picture the most important moments of my life, the person I want by my side is you. Not because I need help, but because I want you there." Emily felt tears sting her eyes. She sat back, gripping the edge of the couch, overwhelmed by a mix of pride, love, and a deep, unexpected emotion she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just that he wanted her to walk him down the aisle, it was that he recognized her role in his life in a way that felt sacred, as though their bond had never been broken by distance or time. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Her voice trembled. The words she wanted to speak seemed small compared to the weight of what he had just shared. She wanted to tell him everything, that she loved him, that she was proud of him, that she had always missed him, but somehow nothing seemed enough. Ethan took a step closer. "You don't have to say anything right now, Mom. I wanted you to know how important you are to me. And I want you there on my big day. Not because anyone expects it, but because you mean the most to me." Emily exhaled slowly, letting the emotions settle. She realized that this moment, this request, was not just about a wedding. It was about connection. It was about recognition, about finally letting him see her as more than a parent, but as a guide, a support, and a safe place he could always return to. She had worried for years that the distance between them had changed their relationship. But in this moment, she understood that it had only deepened it in quiet ways. "You're right, Ethan," she said at last, her voice soft but certain. "I've always been here for you, and I'll be there for you that day. I'll walk beside you. I promise." He let out a breath he didn't even realize he was holding and smiled, a small, relieved smile that seemed to erase years of stress and worry from his face. Emily smiled back, feeling a warmth that filled the room like sunlight after a storm. But even as the relief settled, Emily noticed something else in his shadow of uncertainty, a quiet fear. He was still carrying something unspoken, something that went deeper than the wedding itself. And as much as she wanted to ask him what it was, she knew he wasn't ready to say it yet. Tonight, the first step had been taken. The conversation had begun, and that first step was enough to remind Emily that life was unpredictable, full of surprises, and sometimes filled with moments of deep, unexpected love. Ethan sat down beside her, and they let the silence stretch between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was comforting. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where they could rebuild the closeness that life had slowly chipped away. And Emily knew in her heart that whatever came next, they would face it together. The night outside was quiet now. The rain had softened. The streets glimmered under the streetlights, and inside, A mother and her son shared a moment that neither would ever forget. And yet, Emily's heart whispered that there was more to this story, more emotions, more surprises, and more truths that Ethan had yet to reveal. The living room was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. Rain had slowed outside, leaving the streets glistening and still. Emily watched Ethan, noticing the way he shifted on the couch, hands fidgeting, as if he wanted to speak but didn't know how to start. Her heart tightened. Something was bothering him beyond the wedding request. She had learned over the years to read his silences, the little tells that showed he carried more than he admitted. "Mom," Ethan began, his voice low. "There's something else I need to tell you. Something I haven't said before." Emily leaned forward instinctively. She didn't interrupt. She knew he needed the space to find the words himself. She could feel the weight of the moment, the tension in his shoulders, the nervous glance toward the floor. She remembered the little boy he had been, the one who came to her for comfort when life was confusing or frightening. And even now, at 23, she realized he still needed that same comfort, even if he had learned to hide it. "I'm scared," he admitted finally. "Not about marrying Rachel. I love her. I know she's the one. But I feel unprepared. I feel like I'm pretending to be someone everyone expects me to be." Emily's chest tightened. She reached out, touching his arm lightly. "Ethan, you're not pretending. You're learning, growing. It's okay to feel scared." He shook his head, frustration and vulnerability in his eyes. "No, Mom, it's more than that. I've always tried to be strong, to handle everything alone. I didn't want to bother anyone, not even you. But now, I realize that being strong all the time doesn't mean being ready. I'm terrified of letting Rachel down. I'm terrified of letting myself down." Emily's heart ached. She remembered every sleepless night she had spent worrying about him as a child. The times she had wanted to shield him from every hurt. And now she saw that even as an adult, he carried fears she had not been able to fix. But she also saw courage in him, courage to admit it, to come to her despite his pride, to ask for guidance in a way only someone truly brave could. "You're human, Ethan," she said softly. "No one expects you to have everything figured out. Loving someone, committing to someone, building a life, it's complicated. Being scared doesn't mean you're failing. It means you care." He looked at her, eyes shining, voice quiet. "I guess. I just didn't want you to see me like this. Weak, afraid." Emily shook her head gently. "You're not weak. You're honest. That's strength, Ethan. There's more courage in admitting fear than in pretending it doesn't exist." He took a deep breath, as if letting go of a heavy weight. I think that's why I wanted you to walk me down the aisle. Not just because I love you, not just because I trust you, but because when I'm with you, I feel like myself. I feel grounded. I know I'm not pretending, and I need that. I need you, Mom." Emily felt tears sting her eyes, but she held them back, knowing he needed her calm more than anything else. She reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. Instead, he let himself lean into her touch, the silent connection saying more than words ever could. "You've always been my anchor," he continued, voice soft but firm. "Even when I was away, even when I acted like I didn't need anyone, it was always you I thought about. You're the person who keeps me steady when everything else is spinning." Emily's heart swelled with emotion. She realized that the wedding request, touching as it was, had been about more than a ceremony. It was about trust, about connection, about finally admitting that he didn't have to face life's challenges alone. He was asking her not just to share a moment, but to share his life, his fears, and his growth. She squeezed his hand gently. "Ethan, I'll always be here. I'll walk with you on your wedding day, but I'll also walk with you every day you need me. You don't have to carry everything alone. That's what family is for." He smiled faintly, relief washing over him. But she could see the lingering tension, the unspoken parts of his heart that were still coming to the surface. "Thank you, Mom. I needed to hear that. I really did." For the first time in years, Emily felt a sense of closeness she thought had been lost to time. They sat together in silence, the kind of quiet that heals and strengthens. It wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was simple, real, and full of unspoken understanding. Ethan finally stood, looking more composed. But Emily noticed a trace of vulnerability still lingering in his eyes. A gentle reminder that life was messy and love, even when certain, could be daunting. Mom, he said quietly, I'll need your support. Not just that day, but in everything that comes next. She nodded. Always, Ethan, always. And in that quiet, glowing room, surrounded by the soft light and the fading rain, they both understood that this conversation had changed something between them. The bond they shared wasn't just about the past, it was about trust, honesty, and the courage to face life together, no matter what came next. And even as Ethan left the room to let her process, Emily realized that this was just the beginning of a deeper journey for both. Of them, the night had deepened outside Emily's apartment, and the soft glow of the living room lamp cast a warm circle of light on the floor. Ethan stood near the window, looking out at the quiet streets glistening from the earlier rain. He had shared his fears, his vulnerability, and his request, one that had surprised Emily, but also touched her deeply. She could feel this shift in their relationship. The unspoken distance that had grown over the years was slowly dissolving. Tonight, they were finally reconnecting in a way that felt honest and real. Ethan turned to her, his hands in his pockets, uncertain. Mom, so what do you think? Will you walk me down the aisle? His voice was quiet, almost hesitant, as if he feared her answer might disappoint him. Emily took a deep breath. She felt a mix of emotions, pride, love, and a tender sadness for all the years they had been apart. Yes, Ethan, she said finally. Her voice was calm but firm. I will walk with you. I'll be there every step of the way. Relief washed over his face, and a faint smile appeared. Yet Emily noticed something more in Heman's edge of uncertainty, a shadow behind his eyes. The wedding was a joyful step, but it wasn't the only thing he carried. She sensed there were lingering fears, worries he hadn't fully expressed. But tonight, the first part of healing had begun. You don't have to be perfect, she said gently. No one expects you to have everything figured out. Life is messy. Love is messy. That's what makes it real. Ethan's shoulders relaxed a little. I know, Mom. Sometimes I feel like I have to be strong all the time. I don't want to make mistakes or hurt anyone, especially Rachel. Emily walked closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. You won't. You'll learn together. And you won't face anything alone. I'll be there for you, and so will the people who love you. That includes me. For a moment, they just stood there, looking at each other. It wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. It was the kind of silence that carries understanding. The years of distance and quiet resentment seemed to fade into that one moment. They were reconnecting not just as mother and son, but as two people who trusted each other deeply. Ethan nodded slowly. I guess. I wanted to ask you because I needed to feel that again. That connection. I know I'm not a little boy anymore, but sometimes I still need my mom. His voice cracked slightly, and Emily felt her chest tighten. You'll always be my son, Ethan, she whispered, and I'll always be here. That doesn't change no matter how old you get or how far you go. You don't have to carry the world alone. He let out a slow breath, one that seemed to release years of tension, the weight of expectation, the fear of failing. The constant pressure to appear strong, they all lifted a little in the quiet warmth of their shared understanding. Emily could see his eyes soften, a mix of relief and gratitude shining there. Thank you, Mom, he said finally. Not just for saying yes to the wedding, but for being here. For listening. For everything. Emily smiled, feeling a swell of emotion. I've always been here, Ethan, and I always will be. That doesn't stop now, just because life has moved on. Stepped closer and gave her a careful, respectful hug. Not the small hugs of a child, but a deeper, grown-up embrace that carried sincerity and connection. Emily held him just long enough to let both of them feel the bond they had almost lost, as he pulled back. Ethan looked more confident, lighter somehow. I feel ready, he said. At least a little. Not perfect, but ready. And that's enough, right? Emily nodded. More than enough. You'll figure out the rest along the way. And I'll be there to cheer you on, support you, and remind you that it's okay to be human. The quiet of the night wrapped around them. The rain had stopped entirely, leaving only the gentle hum of the city outside. Emily realized that life didn't have to be perfect and relationships didn't have to be flawless. What mattered was honesty, love, and trust, and in that moment, she saw all three reflected in her son. "You've grown so much, Ethan," she said softly, her voice full of pride. "And I'm proud of the man you've become. But don't forget, you'll always need support. No one can do it alone." He smiled, a genuine, relaxed smile. "I won't forget, Mom. Not now, not ever."